viewers, we're going to once again look at issues related to India's unexpected growth story. So let's focus tonight, viewers, by asking three questions. And I'm going to begin tonight with these three questions that's going to set really the template for the debate. My first question: has economic analysis in India been politicized to such an extent that now it only suits a political agenda? And have these economists, who were once perhaps even leading certain institutions in this country, begun to lend their support, their credibility, to actually push a political narrative? Another question that I want to put out tonight, viewers, is whether the opposition perhaps has gestated now an ecosystem of what were once credible analysts to basically feed the public an agenda. The third question is a variation of that, viewers. And let me enunciate that. Can we trust these so-called independent analysts to give us the correct picture? Because, viewers, if they have been in some ways co-opted, then where do we look for credible analysis? Now, why am I asking these questions? I'm asking these questions because, viewers, India's better than expected growth trajectory has silenced or exposed, let me put it that way, an ecosystem of experts. They appear regularly on TV, sometimes along with political leaders from the opposition, and they hold forth on India's diminishing economic prospects. Sometimes, viewers, they even couch their pessimism in caveats that range from not just how this government under Modi is squandering India's resources, but also by suggesting that India is now overrun by sectarianism, which is harming the output, the productivity of this nation. Well, viewers, all of this, unfortunately, is not borne out by facts and by the figures that were released yesterday, but I'll come to that in just a few moments. Because India's better than expected performance has given now the government a leg up. They feel vindicated, so much so that the BJP today, viewers, has begun to call out all of those very credible economic voices to suggest that they were put up by the opposition that is so blinded by their disaffection for Modi to run down the India story. Viewers, this is a serious charge that is being made. And to that end, the BJP even put out a video today, an old video that dated back to last year, where one of India's notable economists with a very credible track record and who has practiced his economics in the West and was also a former governor of the RBI, sitting with Rahul Gandhi and saying with an air of confidence that India's growth numbers will not go above 5%, will perhaps be the negative end of 5%. Now, viewers, some have even, as you know, written large number of op-eds, columns, have gone on television to say that India is not going to do any better than Sri Lanka. In fact, they even said that Bangladesh today was better poised than India in terms of its overall growth. Now, conveniently forgetting that the basis of Bangladesh was much lower than India. Nonetheless, viewers, this is what was said. The question is, was the opposition so blinded by their dislike for Modi that they platformed all these economists and in the process took in so much of their negativity that they forgot, or they couldn't rather, see India's growth as it has now come to the fore. Viewers, the BJP certainly thinks so, and I told you it's begun to tweet old predictions made by top economists suggesting that India was really hitting rock bottom. But viewers, let's get to the reality. I just want to contrast this. Let's pull out some of the numbers. The first numbers I want to show you, and they're on your screens, that India's GDP numbers for the financial year 2022-2023 are basically higher than what even the IMF projected for this country. And just look at this. IMF projected 5.9%. I'm not saying that the IMF in any way is aligned to any political outlook, but all I'm suggesting is that India's GDP numbers have beaten all expectations. We're at 7.2%. Let's look at some other statistics. Let's pull them up on the screen. Now, viewers, what you're going to see is a higher projection than even the RBI itself. So these numbers are clearly startling, and a lot of this 7.2% has come in from some very important job-creating parts or sectors of the economy. So there is reason to even feel more confident, as India is going to obviously be buffeted by headwinds, as the problem in Ukraine, the global economic crisis it has triggered, becomes more and more intractable. But nonetheless, it seems on the back of these numbers that we are very well placed to basically weather that storm. And you can just see on the right, viewers, those were, even the World Bank was 6.3%. Almost 1% more is where India is at. So viewers, contrast this number, the 7.2% that India has been able to somehow grow at, to the forecasts that were being made blithely by certain economists. And let's watch that video that was tweeted today by the BJP that is now basking in India's glory. So let's watch that video.
So the next year is going to be more difficult than this one. Of course, this one had lots of difficulties with the war and all that. But because growth is going to slow in the world more generally, people are raising interest rates, that brings down growth. India is also going to be hit. Indian interest rates have also gone up, but Indian exports have been slowing quite a bit. And India's inflation problem is more a commodity inflation problem, vegetable inflation problem, and that is also going to be negative for growth. So I think that we would be lucky if we do 5% next year.
Now, viewers, this is just from December 2022. Raghuram Rajan walked arm in arm, really, with Rahul Gandhi in December, if you remember, as part of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, and then decided to pitch his tent and have a frank and freewheeling conversation about India's economic prospects. Economists can get it wrong, viewers. The problem is, when they sit on a particular political platform, they need to be really sure of what they're saying. Because someone like Raghuram Rajan, who's very credible, his pessimistic predictions are going to be immediately amplified by the opposition. Naturally, viewers, it suits them to suggest that Modinomics has flopped, that India is going right down, that this is not a V-shaped recovery. You might have seen today morning's Times of India, where the graph was a V. Now, viewers, I'm not suggesting that everything with India's economy is right. There is a lot of work to be done. But what I'm trying to suggest to you is that this sort of condescension, this pessimism is not unexpected. The ecosystem has consistently painted India and its growth prospects in somewhat poor light. And let me pull up more quotes for you. And this is Idris Ali of the TMC. This is July 2022, less than a year ago. And what did he say? India facing similar crisis as Sri Lanka due to Prime Minister Modi. And you know what happened to Sri Lanka, viewers? It really imploded. It became a case study in what not to do. This was Idris Ali. There are others. Let me pull out others. Situation worse than Sri Lanka will happen in India. Narendra Modi will have to resign and run away. This is the TMC. The TMC has not sent a guest tonight, viewers, on our debate. I don't know why, but it would have been great to see them defend this prediction. Others have said sluggish pace of GDP shows a shortage of investment. This is a Congress party statement from February 2023. Sluggish pace of GDP showed a shortage of investment. Story of a nose-diving economy in Modi's Amrit Kal. Survival real challenge for common man in Amrit Kal. I'm not saying that the common man, viewers, is living the life. I'm not saying that. But certainly, viewers, our GDP is not sluggish. We are the #1 fastest growing economy in the world amongst large economies. I'm not talking about small economy. I'm really talking about the big cats, the fat cats. United States of America, the UK, Germany, the EU as a whole, Japan. These are big economies. We're now competing in that league, viewers, and we're, in fact, even overtaking China at their own game. Now, listen to some of the other opposition reactions very quickly before I open this up for debate.
When the failure happens, they find almost every other reason to justify. This is one of such reasons they are trying to justify. We know the economy, country, Karnataka has contributed a larger extent to the economy of this country, and we are the second largest tax payers. GST, we are the second largest in the country. Rather than commenting on these things, I only appeal to the Prime Minister, give back our share, give back our GST share properly, so that we'll use that money for the development.
That is just jugglery of numbers. The country is suffering deeply from unemployment problem, and the pressure, financial pressure upon the common people, middle class, working class, that is increasing sharply. So the jugglery of words, that is a printed one, and the experience is completely opposite.
Now, who are these opposition leaders quoting? They're quoting a large number of economists, as I told you, viewers, some as credible as Raghuram Rajan. That's where they're getting this confidence from, even when the world, viewers, has been hailing India's story. I mean, the numbers that I've shown you are also pointing in the direction of a phenomenal buoyancy. Look at this. FDI is on the rise from $305 billion. Now, 2014 to 2022, it's $524 billion, and this despite 2 black swan events, viewers. And let's look at what the world has been saying. Now, this is Tim Cook, Apple CEO. He's never made these statements before. India, a hugely exciting market for us, and a major focus. People only come, viewers, to markets, big MNCs, where there is something in it for them. They won't invest in markets where there's zero prospect of growth. India can become the innovation hub for the world, says Bill Gates. And he said this to a magazine. It was a big interview. India will become the 3rd largest economy in the next 6 years, says Puneet Ranjan, Deloitte Global CEO. Well, viewers, we're on track. India to remain the fastest growing economy in the world, IMF said in April 2023. In fact, as I showed you, it had a very low expectation this year, and we've beaten it by a lot. Bloomberg survey, July 2022. India has zero probability of slipping into recession. And therefore, viewers, I have to pose these questions tonight, and let's open this up. Tehseen Poonawalla with us. Sitaprata Das is also there with us. P.K. Basu, Chief Economist, ICICI Securities, needs no introduction. Tushar Gupta, Senior Editor, Swarajya, also with us. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Poonawalla, or Sitaprata Das, or whoever wants to. Let me actually begin with you, Mr. Poonawalla, since you are extremely close to the Congress point of view. And I want to ask you this, in all honesty. has economic analysis now been politicized by the opposition to the extent where even economists have been co-opted to lend support at the risk of undermining their own credibility to a political agenda? That's the fundamental question. We're not talking about economics tonight. We're talking about the politics behind the narrative. Is that what's really happening? I think you're on mute, Tehseen. We need you to
Can you hear me now?
tonight.
Can you hear me now? I disagree with your
Go
question.
ahead.
I
Yes.
think what's happened is the government, of course I disagree, the Government of India, in particularly the Ministry of Finance, which has zero knowledge about macroeconomics. It understands microeconomics. It has zero knowledge about macroeconomics. I think has politicized the issue to hide its incompetence, its failures, and does headline management and tarnishes people's reputations only to hide a very, very poor report card. Now let's give you numbers with the politics that comes in. Rightly so, India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world.
No,
Rightly
no,
so.
hang on.
No
the numbers came out yesterday.
Numbers
No, one
are
second.
very
Tehseen, I'm not going to, I'm not going to allow you to cherry pick. One second. This is a political debate.
I'm talking about numbers.
No, one second.
Political numbers.
Tehseen, this is a political debate.
For the politics.
No, one second. One second. I never gave any political numbers. One second. First, let me, since you made a charge, I'm only quoting, sir, can I please? Can I please? This is not fair.
Sure,
you can't
but I would like to rebut
that I am sitting here,
numbers.
that I am sitting here and misquoting numbers. There is an NSSO report. I'm putting it out. Now you can tear it up and throw it. You know, your party has a large number of leaders that are very experienced in tearing up important papers. So I'm saying you can trash it. I'm asking a more specific point. A more specific point. Even the RBI's predictions have been actually exceeded. 7.2% versus 7%. So I'm asking you, Tehseen Poonawalla, forget the numbers. Forget the numbers. Let's look at what other people who are beyond India's influence, what they have been saying. Tim Cook, I've just quoted Bill Gates, several others. And unfortunately for you, the money is coming in, it's not going out. So I'm asking you this question, who has been conning whom? And for
the government is conning the people. Allow me to answer and rebut.
Sure.
Thank you. Now there are two numbers right now, two statistics you put out right now. Number one, 7.2 RBI data, the GDP is exceeded. Of course I concede to that. I concede to that India is the fastest growing economy in the world. But sir, what does 7.2% reveal? Allow me to expose this government and its headline management, and I'll expose the politics. If we've ended the financial year at 7.2%, rightly so, the first quarter of this year we ended at 13%, the second at 8.4%. That means quarter 3 and quarter 4 you've come down to 3.5%, sir. That's why you've ended at 7.2%. Point number 2, you've said FDI is coming into India. FDI as a percentage to GDP has...
Your maths is poor.
My honesty and my integrity is absolutely
I'll bring you in. You can rebut
come in when your chance comes, Mr. Basu, because I don't believe it, but please don't interrupt me. Now, FDI in India peaked at 3.5% of the GDP in 2008-2009. It's come down to 1.8% of the GDP, but hey, sure, money is coming to India. Now, let me give you numbers and tell you the politics. Labor force participation in the Indian economy when the greatest Prime Minister of India served
Look, let me be honest with you. Let me be honest with you. Hang on, Tehseen, you're going to railroad. One second, you're just going to railroad. 1 second, let's look at the maze. No, hang on, let me just finish, please. Let me just finish, please. Give me 30 seconds. I'm not here to rubbish your analysis. I began by saying the work is still to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. But the fact is, can I just, well, certainly, sir, Raghuram Rajan said, we're not going to be even making 5%. We'll be lucky. We're at 7.2.
He's right.
Come on, and he was sitting with Rahul Gandhi. I've just played it out for you.
And he's right.
How is he right? He never added any caviets. You're adding caveats in retrospect.
Right.
Let me bring in PK Basu on that. Hang on. How is Raghuram Rajan right? PK Basu, let me bring him in.
The simple fact.
Oh gosh.
Just give me one line, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
now
let me prove the numbers right.
Let's just, this Tehseen fellow just said that growth must have slowed down to 3%. He is allowed to create his own facts. He's allowed to create his own facts. He has created something out of thin air, saying that growth has.
Look, I can't. I'm not sitting in studio tonight. Tehseen Poonawalla, if you guys are going to speak over each other, I can't hear anything. So please, I'm trying to tell you, let me speak and put this. No, hang on. Let's get this debate back on track. If you're all just going to speak over each other, it's not going to work. You have to cooperate with me. I can't hear what he is saying, and I can't hear what you're saying. I'm sitting out of studio. So if you have a problem with someone's language, I'm going to make a broad appeal. Let's not get personal. Now let's, 1 second. Now please, I've made a broad appeal. Let's not mess around with the language. Let's get to the substantive point, because the whole idea, I know what's going to happen tonight, viewers. One side is going to try and provoke and derail, because they don't want to face the consequences of getting it wrong. 5%, lucky to get 5%. It's on your screens. I haven't made this up. So PK Basu, how did someone of the eminence of Raghuram Rajan get it so wrong? And is it because he's sharing a stage with Rahul Gandhi and therefore allowed perhaps his political proclivities to get the better of his professional analysis? That's a simple question I'm asking, PK Basu. Is it a wrong question?
The answer is obviously yes. He has chosen to join a political party. He has chosen to be part of a political platform of the opposition. And he has every right, as a citizen of this country, he has a right to do that. But when he is doing that, his prognostications have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Tehseen Poonawalla just claimed that since growth was strong in the first quarter, it must be 3% now. Sorry, it is not. In the latest quarter, growth was 6.1%. There was one quarter, the third quarter of the fiscal year, in which growth moderated to 4.5%. That is when Raghuram Rajan raised the old spectre of the so-called Hindu rate of growth. There was simply one quarter when it was 4.5%. This quarter has come up to 6.1%. And the important point is that investment spending is growing. Investment spending is growing in double digits for the last 2 fiscal years. It's grown 10.5% in the current fiscal year, 11.5% in the previous fiscal year. So we've had 2 consecutive years of very strong fixed investment spending, which is a key driver of growth. The second factor that is driving the growth in the Indian economy is the improved services exports and the reduction in imports. So we are basically seeing the current account move into a surplus in the last quarter, and that surplus is likely to be sustained.
Therefore,
in the
since this is now well known, and anyone can Google the NSSO report, you can look it up, viewers. We don't have to constantly reiterate why we got to 7.2%. We've got there. Now, the question is, Mr. Das, and I've asked you this question, and I'll reiterate it, so please respond to the question and don't take us in the numbers maze, because that's not going to suffice tonight. I'm going to ask you, has the opposition gestated an ecosystem of pliant economists to basically speak their language? Mr. Das, because I don't see the TMC on this debate after having shot the government in both legs and made predictions suggesting that we are going to end up like Sri Lanka. Well, we are in the opposite trajectory and direction. So, Mr. Das, I want to understand this. Where did the opposition get this analysis from?
First of all, I am not representing any party. Secondly, it is very unfortunate that you are trying to refute the comments made by our ex-governor and one of the stalwarts of economy, Raghuram Rajan, with outsiders like Tim Cook. Tim Cook wants to sell product in India. He can say anything. But we all know that India...
Excuse me, Mr. Das.
Yes.
Please, I'm not trying to refute anybody. I presented the NSSSO number, which says that we are at 7.2%, and I contrasted that with a soundbite of Mr. Raghuram Rajan, who said we'll be lucky to get to 5%. So don't twist my words. I asked you a specific question. If you don't want to answer it, let me move on to Mr. Gupta. Maybe you can mull it in your head, and once you get it, you can respond to me. Mr. Gupta, I'll just ask you very simply, what is the cost? And I have to ask this question. No, I'm sorry. Mr. Das, you can't start accusing me and try to suggest that and put words in my mouth and try to suggest that I have tried to, mislead and misdirect. This is not what I'm doing. I brought out a set of figures, which are the official figures, and I contrasted it with what Mr. Raghuram Rajan, sitting in the company of Rahul Gandhi, predicted. And I'm asking you, why is there such a big gap? So fine, you have your point of view. Please keep it to yourself. If you can't answer my question, I'm bringing in Mr. Gupta, and I'm going straight to him because you're wasting time. Mr. Gupta, there's an interview that I have which I need to broadcast with the army chief. He's a very important voice tonight because the situation in Manipur is on a knife's edge and people will want to listen to that. So keep your answer short, and I'm asking you, Mr. Gupta, a very specific question. What is the price that India pays for this obviously politically enjoined narrative which depresses the national sentiment? I'm asking you this question, Mr. Gupta, in all honesty.
Rahul, the answer is quite simple. Because the opposition likes to hail Raghuram Rajan, I'll tell about him, since he said in his interview about the Hindu rate of growth. In 2013, Raghuram Rajan complains that India is not manufacturing enough. 10 years later, we are manufacturing, and Raghuram Rajan complains that, oh, we are just assembling components by importing them from China, but not into real manufacturing. The government then sanctions $10 billion for a semiconductor industry in India. But what does Raghuram Rajan say? Oh, why are we getting into manufacturing? Why are we getting into semiconductors? We should probably spend that money on building 10 universities. That is the hypocrisy, the political narrative that is spread against India and Indian manufacturing interests. Nevertheless, since Tehseen spoke about Raghuram Rajan being right, in 2018, Raghuram Rajan also spoke about the UPA era bad bank loans that actually hindered credit growth in the first term of the Narendra Modi government. Between 2008 to 2014, we were told that there is great credit expansion under the UPA era. But where did it lead us? It led us to a twin balance sheet problem post-2014, which Raghuram Rajan, which the opposition respects, said was a UPA problem in 2018. Tehseen says inflation, that the government doesn't understand macroeconomics and they are into headline management. Tehseen, in the last 2 years of the UPA era, 2012 to 2014, the annual percentage change in consumer price index exceeded 8%. Under Narendra Modi, 2 years of pandemic, 1 year of Russia-Ukraine war, 3 years, not once has the consumer price index inflation exceeded 8%. Right now, it's nearby 6%. In November 2013, 5 months before the national elections, 12.2% was the CPI inflation. Look at it where it is today. Look at it where it is today. Raghuram Rajan, the same person you say is correct.
You know, Tushar Gupta will list a large number of facts for you.
Next banking crisis.
But the fact is, there is a price that we pay as a nation collectively when very credible voices decide to lend their image, their word to a political program. That should not be done. That should not be done, because when you depress sentiments in a country, you actually end up working against the interests of the country. And that's what's really happening. Everyone around the world begins to believe the false propaganda. Money won't come in, people will hedge their bets. And who gets affected? It's you and I, the tax-paying public. This is the greatest disservice. I leave it at this, viewers.